Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as it may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise today in strong support of H.R. 4209, my bill, the DHS Illicit Cross-Border Tunnel Defense Act. I'd like to thank my colleague from New Jersey for his support. It's important to say that this is one step. It's not the solution for all the problems that we face at our southern border, but it is one important piece. Since President Biden took office in January of 2021, U.S. Customs and Border Protection has had over 2.2 million migrant encounters along the southwest border. And due to the sheer numbers of migrants that are flooding across the border, CBP personnel, including Border Patrol agents, are often diverted from their essential jobs, their daily task to process migrants, most of whom cross the United States-Mexico border illegally between the ports of entry. With Border Patrol agents occupied with other tasks and not patrolling the border, the security of our southwest border, and therefore the security of our nation, has been crippled while cartels take full advantage. In addition to the record numbers of migrant encounters, CBP has been interdicting growing quantities of illegal narcotics, especially methamphetamine, fentanyl, and other fentanyl-laced drugs along the border. For the first time, the United States has reached a tragic record, an unfortunate number of over 100,000 drug overdose deaths in 1 year period. And that's, I want to repeat again, over 100,000 overdose deaths directly related to fentanyl in this past year, the most ever recorded in the United States. Additionally, according to the CDC, fentanyl is now the leading cause of death of Americans aged 18 to 45. In one of the communities that I represent, Odessa, Texas, law enforcement officials have reported 22 fentanyl overdoses in just 90 days. Parents nationwide are scared for their kids, and there is good reason for that fear. Fentanyl-related deaths nearly doubled the death rates from COVID-19, from car accidents, from cancer, and even suicide. We need a plan, a strategy, and a cornerstone of this strategy must be to stop the supply of drugs that are flowing into our country. Mexico is now the primary source of fentanyl and synthetic opioids entering the United States. And of course, smuggling those drugs across the border comes with the risk of packages being seized by our border and law enforcement agencies. To minimize this risk, in 1989, the Sinaloa cartel built their first ever narco tunnel, as has been heard this morning on this House floor. Back then, narco tunnels were short, they were unsophisticated, but over time, the cartels have learned and perfected these tunnels. They're longer, they're more sophisticated. They come with lights, with ventilation systems, with rail carts, and they facilitate the movement of drugs and other illicit commodities, including the trafficking of people, bulk cash, and weapons. Since 1990, law enforcement officials have discovered more than 230 of these cross-border tunnels, and there are likely more tunnels that exist between Mexico and the United States that are yet undiscovered. That's the heart of this bill. CBP's tunnel technology program has matured over the years, and under the direction of U.S. Border Patrol, this program has been testing and acquiring technologies that do three essential things: predict tunnel locations, detect and project the paths of the tunnels, and confirm a tunnel's existence and location through mapping and measurements. As CBP develops enhanced capabilities that will do the detection of the tunnels, drug cartels have become more emboldened, and they are creating more elaborate and harder to detect tunnel systems. Without this critical legislation, CBP truly lacks the ability to scale their tunnel interdiction and remediation operations. The DHS Illicit Cross-Border Tunnel Defense Act addresses this issue by requiring CBP to develop a counter-tunnel operations plan that would address risk-based criteria for interdicting and remediating illicit tunnels. And they will also look at the processes for sharing information on these tunnels and key indicators of the construction to educate field personnel and require an assessment of technology and personnel needs. Additionally, this legislation would authorize funding for CBP to counter tunnel interdiction and remediation operations. With the surge of illicit border activity, both above and below ground, CBP needs resources to combat illicit cross-border tunnels in order to secure our homeland and protect our national security. Passage of this legislation will disrupt and dismantle cartel smuggling operations, safeguarding American communities from the illegal narcotic problem that we see is completely devastating our country, including my home state of Texas. Border security is national security, and I'd like to thank Chairman Thompson, Ranking Member Katko, for bringing this important legislation to the floor today. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of my bill, H.R. 4209, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Reserve.